All right. Secret hose. Secret hose.
Against the girl.
Right.
Hoe on the left right here.
Hey,
Girl.
shout out to the hose, to the secret hose, Secret House Against the World. Today, I gotta say that we're here in Tokyo. We are a small group. We're a 3-member group that review albums.
Triumvirate.
Yeah, that review albums. I didn't want to mispronounce it again. I'm on wax with that, like the RZA and his,
I pronounce shit
malpropisms.
wrong all the damn time.
Yeah.
Danima.
But you're from the South, so it's
Oh,
allowed.
come on, man.
I'm
Y'all
a
stop
West
slandering
Coaster.
the South.
Yeah. No, I mean it's part of you guys' character to call it strength.
Yeah,
Scrimp.
Orange, not
Yeah.
orange. Flow, not floor. Yeah.
Oh, what the fuck? All right, Il Sugi. These beats are not exactly what I had in mind, but thank you. Secret House Against the World. We're here today to talk about the newest Lupe Fiasco album, Drill Music in Zion. It released a few weeks ago. I know we're a little bit late, but COVID happens to people. Or it kind of almost happens to people.
It's around.
This is a 10-song, 40-minute album from him. It is his 8th full-length album. And because we haven't done a Lupe Fiasco review before, I would like us to talk about our familiarity with him and to see what our general thoughts on him as an artist are. Should I get into it first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I like Lupe Fiasco, but I didn't really get on board with enjoying his music much until around Tetsuo and Youth, which was after his label problems, and I think then it becomes a little bit more artsy. But when he first started dropping with the Kick Push and was kind of like a very prominent underground MC that ducked his head above the surface and gained a popularity, back then I had a lot of issues with him because, as people might remember, there were a few songs that he made were reminiscent from a lot of other artists that were still underground. And it's the same thing that Macklemore did. So I had a little bit of a bone to pick with him. I've always considered him a competent MC, but around Tetsuo and Youth, I began to see him as a very talented MC. And since then, Tetsuo and Youth, Drogas Wave, I consider him one of the better MCs in the world. I think he's phenomenally talented. I enjoy both of those albums, especially Tetsuo and Youth. And I generally like him as just an internet presence. Even his show that he had with Royce the 5'9", their beef was kind of funny and hilarious to me too. And I'm a Lupe Fiasco fan.
Okay, so I am sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, but I am the polar opposite to you. I was 14 when Food and Liquor came out, and I was like, oh man, this guy's the best rapper in the world. He's amazing, because bodied Kanye on his own track. It's like, yeah, this guy comes along and he's like nerdy and he's like fun and he raps about giant robots and Nintendo. And like I was like really into it, and then the Cool drops and I'm like 15, I'm like a moody 15-year-old, and that's a very like moody album, and then I kind of started falling off around the time of all the label issues with Atlantic and all this stuff. Lasers.
You weren't feeling lasers?
I see you coming up.
I was like, trash. I told you he was trash.
I only listened to that album maybe once, but Lupe is someone who has always been very, very good at the act of rapping. Like, he raps well, and that was always something that I think worked very much in his favor. But I kind of lost interest, and I listened to Tetsuo and Youth and I thought it was good. I listened to the Drogas albums, I thought they were good, but at this point I wasn't, my tastes had kind of expanded, I'd matured, I'd grown older as a person. I'm in my 20s at this point, so I wasn't really paying attention to Lupe Fiasco. He just kind of stopped being something that I was into. And then on top of that, you say you enjoy his internet presence. I was the complete opposite. I remember just like him having, he was like Talib Kweli to me. He was someone who's repeatedly having spats with fans on Twitter.
Okay. Maybe I didn't see him
having like big like Twitter breakdowns and tantrums and stuff like that. And I just stopped giving a shit about Lupe Fiasco, in my 20s.
I liked him. He got the little katana, he doing a little bit of karate. And then also he was one of the few like larger mainstream artists that would praise A$AP Rock as his favorite MC. And
Perfect
I like that.
segue to what I'm about to say. There's never been such a chameleon in the industry more than hip in hip hop ever than Lupe Fiasco. Dude is a chameleon. Dude can morph himself into whatever he wants to do. Dude was a conventional rapper. Kick, push, all that stuff is conventional. The sun, rain in the sun. And it's like, for some reason, after the label dispute, dude morphed himself into an underground rapper. I don't believe you though, Lupe. But here's the thing. Dude can rap his ass off. Like, it's undeniable. The bars don't fall off bad, but I just don't know what the hell dude is. Now, if you take his music, if you want some kind of authenticity in his music, you're not going to get that from Lupe. Because I don't know what the hell the dude is. Like I said, one day he got a katana swinging it around, the next day he got a skateboard. The next day, I don't know, he's a gangster. Then he's talking about like after school special stuff. I don't know what you are, Lupe.
You ever listen to the Japanese cartoon album? Which is like a rock band he did where he like pretended to be British and he like sings in a British accent over like pop punk.
That sounds like I never want to hear that.
I don't know.
Is it good?
What are you, Lupe? I don't.
worry about
But
it.
you can rap your ass off. But that's my first dip into him was like the kick push days, and I never thought dude was like. Because back then, people were like, oh, that's when backpack rap just first popped off. And people were like, oh, this is the greatest stuff ever, man, big rap. And I never thought he was just awesome. Like, him and Kanye were kind of like the same guy to me. But, you know, after the label dispute, which is kind of a line that we have to mark. After the label dispute, he reinvented himself as this super underground guy. Because to me, he was never an underground rapper. He was a conventional rapper, man, who kind of like latched on to the underground style to elevate himself more and make himself a little bit more.
There was
relevant.
space at the time being made for that. Like, you know, Little Brother had success and a large following, but it was kind of Lupe who was one of the first cats that introduced it to fucking Hot Topic
Exactly.
and Zoomies and shit, you know. And there was a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. I also hated backpack rap back then because I was like, yo, we carry backpacks because there's like graffiti cans in my shit,
or y'all
a
can that
fucking
mug for us.
Facebook, and it's like
Like,
there's
yo.
fucking weed in it. It's like it became like a thing where it's like nerd rap or like conscious rap, and I was like, first off, Some Village isn't exactly conscious
not.
with their lyrics, and it's like I just never liked it. And
had
I
bricks in
saw
backpacks.
I used to see Lupe as kind of an interloper to not an interloper, but a product of that culture that happened to make it popularized. And it wasn't necessarily anything against him. I thought he did fine for it.
Yeah, exactly.
But there was always alternatives to me that I just thought were better back then.
He's an interloper who can rap well.
He's good.
Very well.
I wouldn't, you know, I'm not going to go so far to say that like he's inauthentic or anything like that. I don't really know his personality enough to say that. I would be fine saying that about like Rick Ross, but you know, like with Lupe, he's grown as an artist and he's kind of found his own identity over the last decade-ish or so, and I can appreciate the music industry fucking you up so much that you just disavow trying to please them at all, and that's what his music kind of seems like.
So I bring all of this up about, you know, not caring for Lupe to say that I was wrong. I was wrong. I've had the wrong image of Lupe Fiasco for the best part of a decade. This album, can we get into the album?
Please. We kind of went on for a little while.
So this album, Drill Music in Zion, is very dope to me. I like this album a lot, and it forces me to reevaluate how I look at Lupe as an MC, because I've always agreed generally with his own self-appraisal. I remember there was like an interview or something where they were asking him, and he's like, yeah, I could go bar for bar with Kendrick. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. What Lupe is doing is not the same as what Kendrick is doing. And there was definitely a period when Kendrick first surfaced where people were like comparing the two. You know, they're saying, oh, Kendrick, like he's like the true coming of, you know, this like underground cat who's gonna break the mainstream, and you know, Lupe was like the false prophet of that.
The Lupe archetype, like fully realized,
made flesh, yeah. But
Can you be
Lupe's been
underground? I'm sorry. Can you be underground and be mainstream at the same time?
Run the Jewels,
Okay.
maybe.
All right.
The Roots.
Okay.
Word?
All right. Just sorry. I just had to get that thought out. Sorry.
It's
Apologize.
much more muddy in this day and age where like people can just get their shit out and like have mass followings. Like Decca.
Yeah.
Decca is huge apparently, but like I've never heard the guy.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Jed. I'm.
Yeah. No. So yeah, we get to this album, which was allegedly like composed and rapped and produced in the space of 72 hours. And
recorded with GarageBand and
recorded with
like
GarageBand
I don't know, maybe an
GarageBand.
SM58 $100 mic.
Yeah. And then took like a year to release after this.
Oh, really?
72 hour. Yeah. He talked about it and all this stuff like last year, right? And then the album took a while to come out. You know, I guess maybe there's some label stuff going on, like, you know, mixing, mastering, like all the just final touches.
I didn't know he was with a label anymore.
I don't know. I don't know, but I'm this Drill Music in Zion album has, there's like Reddit posts about it from like 200 days ago, you know. And yeah, I think this is Lupe like at like he sounds rejuvenated, he sounds focused, he has like a lot to say. I think he's nuanced, I think he's intelligent. He's still occasionally corny to me.
Oh yeah, I mean it's part of it.
There's and
I mean, this is a part of his personality. This is a man who like has swords and shit.
Yeah, he has swords and he likes anime, and he like accused Namco of like plagiarizing him for the character Leroy Smith in Tekken. Like
it's corny. You got popular, now you treat us like the Yakuza. It's kind of corny.
Yeah.
but I mean, it's like, you know, it's also endearing to a degree too, and it kind of speaks to his authenticity.
And Lupe is Lupe, and he's always been Lupe. And like I said, you know, I had the wrong idea of who Lupe was, and I think this album is the purest expression of what makes Lupe Fiasco a great artist and someone who is still capable of, like, you know, rapping.
Okay. For me, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And making good songs as well, because there's plenty of guys out there who can rap really, really well. Eminem can rap really, really well, and I think most of his songs are dog shit. Like, you know, there's that line of you know, being good at rapping and making good music, and Lupe's always been good at rapping, and this is also, I think, a very complete realization of what Lupe sets out to do.
I might say the same too. Like when it comes to Tetsuo and Youth, and especially Drogas Waves, those are there's a lot of like academic, intellectual heavy lifting that you have to do to try to figure out what he does. This album seems a little bit more playful and a little bit more concise and directed towards specific ideas that you don't take a lot to unpackage, but there's plenty to do that if you want to look into it. But there's also parts of this album that are like fall off of what seems to be the topical idea of the song, and I think that it's just good rap music. If ever like somebody's like, oh, I've heard of Lupe Fiasco, what should I listen to first? This is probably going to be at the top of my list. I think that this album is just really solid, and it kind of highlights all the, you know, every single point that you would want from Lupe.
It checks all the boxes.
Yeah, it checks all the boxes.
The drill music in Zion for me, man. And look, that
Good
whole
title.
thing I said, totally misleading, right? I was like, drill music in Zion.
I don't know.
I was like, am I going to get some drill music? No, I did not. And like, yo, it's a well-constructed album. This album to me is conventional. It's a super conventional album.
The beats are very
yes,
conventional.
and
They're
I think
good,
that works, though, because I think people have this notion that if you do a conventional album, it's somehow not creative or not good. And this album shows that conventional album can be creative and well thought out.
It's a lot like that Decca, but just much better.
Well, yes.
Conventional beats, perfect. Complex lyrics, political lyrics, but just
makes
better
sense.
at it.
The lyrics are solid and on brand for like what you expect for a Lupe. There is no deviation in lyrics. The dude has gotten better at his lyrics. Now, I will say a slight critique for me. The album does come off a little after school specialish.
Lupe does.
And for me, it's like some of the thoughts that you're giving is like, you're giving a problem, but you're not giving any solutions. It's like that whole, you want to hire something from a black man, keep it in the book approach. And I don't like that for a lot of the albums and some of the concepts. I'm just like, all right, bro, you talking about the problem, but can I get some solutions, Lupe? Can I get some solutions?
I think one thing where Lupe succeeds quite heavily on this album is that Lupe doesn't go full like personal responsibility mode, but at the same time he doesn't just go like for this like abstract institutional ghost of racism that plagues black people. Like there is a degree, you know, when he's on was it the last track on that album,
on Fodem.
on Fodem
Hard
on Phonem, sorry.
hard song, by
You
the
know,
way.
rappers
Love it.
die too much. Like That's a verse.
That's a verse. I like that.
And you know, but then he comes back and he explains it from like a contemplational sense, and this idea of like, you know, sometimes he wishes that rappers were being inauthentic and that they weren't actually going out and shooting each other and stuff like that. And you know, I think he approaches it on like a very even-handed way. There's definitely some times on this album where I'm like, wait, what are you talking about?
Yeah. I also haven't taken all the time to
I don't
pick
think
it apart.
It's like full like intellectual powerhouse, like academic mode
not.
in the way that, you know, your Billy Woodses are.
Definitely
but,
not.
In terms of like a guy who just gets off on beats and is clever with it and actually does have stuff to say, you know, outside of talking about how good he is at rapping,
Right.
Or going full circle and trying to make something that has to be like sat down and picked apart and analyzed, he strikes right down the middle.
Sometimes it's just good rapping.
It's just
It's
good
like,
rapping.
it's like, look, if you try to pick apart like the Malcolm X bar and what Malcolm X's politics are compared to Lupe's and Malcolm X Wing X, you know what I mean?
Malcolm Xbox.
Yeah, you know, like those. Sometimes it's just dope rapping, but there are a lot of moments on this album that
beat's
I've
crazy
been
too.
trying. Yeah, I've been trying to pick apart and figure out, and some of the things I don't necessarily get what he's going at, but you know, like Fish, right? The Fish track is really interesting to me. I feel like it's about how like religion exploits the masses and the various contradictions of things like the prosperity gospel intertwined with capitalism and how it's lost its meaning of Christ's way. And Fish, of course, is the symbol for Jesus. You know, you know what I mean? And it's like, he's got all these really interesting bars. It's like you can pull and find meaning towards what might be the concept of it, but it's like the Wonder Woman line about fighting the apple trees, or like Adam and Eve actually happen in Applebee's, go half on a sample platter that you can have with cheese. It's like cheese could be money, Applebee's could be this thing in capitalism with sharing the Adam and Eve. It's like there's so many ways that you can go with that, and that's what's really fun about Lupe's music. Not to say that it's necessarily like some super high level intellectual bar craftsmanship, but sometimes it's just really dope rapping.
You could make it that way if you wanted to, and that's the thing with Lupe that always like got me.
With almost any type of rapper, I guess, like with it that is a little bit abstract and approaching. Like, to me, this is high art.
It is.
To me, this is high art. When you have a craftsman like Lupe or a Black Thought or even an Eminem to a degree, I won't shit on them. Like, what they are able to do with language and words is uncanny. There's like what Lupe is doing. Like, name another MC that does it his way, that has bars crafted his way, that uses double and triple entendres or these pop cultural references situated in like his black experience. Like, nobody does it. No. Like, his said his favorite MC is like A$AP Rock. A$AP Rock is doing completely different things than Cannabis or Eminem or Lupe or any of these guys. And this is just a master craftsman putting together something.
I would
that's
say
amazing.
that this is Lupe at his most A$AP Rock, though, compared to his previous work. Because even
I feel like Mural is just like trying to ape A$AP in a way that makes it more A$AP Rocky, because it's just like complicate.
Yeah, let me rap real good for 8 minutes.
Like fucking crazy.
Yeah, but Miss Mural, like, you know,
yeah.
he tells this story, and you know, there's this kind of he uses these kind of metaphors in a really interesting way, and it's nice to consider his breakdowns of you know, his ideas of capital versus creativity, and as the art and as a craftsman. The only times where it really falls flat for me is that there are some times where he kind of just beats you over the head with the metaphor, like on Kiosk, when he's just like, and that's in the middle of the mall, and I'm kind of like,
I'm still not exactly sure what that track is getting at. I've got some ideas about,
right. It's like maybe. I mean, again, I'm not entirely sure what he's talking about on that track per se. I think there's obviously ideas of the market and how these things kind of come together in your place, how it appeals like a mass level.
Like, bouginess is aspiring to be the next higher class, right? And so, like, to buy these jewels in the middle of the mall that doesn't even have a space that's really situated for them as a storefront, but selling you these ideas of upward mobility perhaps, or ways to project that bouginess, and also just like a variety of other things he gets off in the track.
Yeah, I just wish he wasn't singing it like a Disney villain.
Yeah, I don't like the singing at all on this album. That was.
I could go either way on this. I think, you know, like on the title track, like I think his singing is fine on there. I think on Fornum, I think his singing is fine. Autobotto.
My biggest thing that I like for all of Lupe's experimental avant-garde high art approach to things, one of my biggest things that I care to like that tend to kind of make it less interesting for me is the production. Like, this production's very good. It's competent. It's solid. It is a more conventional boom bap for the majority of the songs. It doesn't lean into any of the tropes of more modern underground hip hop, like drumless or experimental or really weird fusions of genres smashed together. But the album feels a little bit like, when I'm listening to it, it gets a little bit monotonous. Autobado and Naomi are the ones that kind of like lift me out of that a little bit. But I wish that he would kind of experiment just a little bit more production-wise, because his lyrics are always just fascinating.
I agree. I don't think this is the album. I mean, Droga's Wave is that album, right? Like,
sure.
This is an album. I don't remember the exact story how this album came about, but I assume like another rapper, like a Yellow Wolf or someone like called him out or something.
Really?
And he was like,
Yellow Wolf called this guy out?
I don't know if it was Yellow Wolf. Wow. It was something like that, and he was like,
different weight classes.
I can make a great album in a day or whatever, and then he tried to do it on stream.
It was supposed to be 24 hours,
24 hours,
right?
and I guess he fell asleep because he's a human being. And
do y'all think he wrote all these lyrics in 24 hours? I have a hard time believing.
Oh,
that.
no,
here's the rapper dilemma, right?
But a rapper as good as Lupe is gonna have lyrics in the bank.
That's what I'm saying. The rapper dilemma is like the freestyler. It's already pre-written lyrics, but because you're saying it off the top of your head, it counts as freestyle, which is not how I grew up. Freestyling was like, coming up with something new.
Of course, the album's not entirely off the dome. But like, if you are a rapper who's been doing this for 15 years, longer, and someone who's very, very good at it, Lupe is a good rapper. Yeah, of course he's going to have bars and bars and bars and bars and bars. And if you asked him to sit down and freestyle for an hour, he could do it. And of course, a lot of it would be pre-written stuff. Yes. It would be stuff that was in the vault. And I've
got pocket bars that I have had in my head for years.
I got my go-to too.
I don't have a problem with that. Whether or not he wrote it in that period, unlikely.
I'm just speculating.
Okay, this album itself, like, the 72 hours makes a lot of sense, because a lot of it is just like, I don't know if this is meant to be together, but I will say it is a great album, and dude can rap his ass off. So listen to the album.
I think the simplicity and the elegance of the album keeps it cohesive, though. Like,
the beats work in favor of that.
The beats work in favor of that. Obviously you got the auto-boto, like the trap kind of thing, and he does the whole I'm Carrera.
Who did the production on this?
Soundtrack. And maybe Lupe himself.
Now he got like a file full of beats from that cat, and then just fucking wrote it. Yeah?
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, so
he also
Lupe
did the cover
soundtrack.
art.
Yeah,
he also did the
artwork.
painting of the cover art, which looks really dope to me. I didn't know he was a painter like that.
He did the Tetsuo and Youth color as well.
Okay,
which is the same kind of style.
Maybe it's me not being too hard on Lupe, calling him a chameleon. Maybe dude is just what they call that guy, a Renaissance man who can do everything.
People are allowed to do that.
And you know what? I'm sorry, Lupe. I'm just saying, like, I don't know what you are, and that's not saying it in a pejorative way, but you are a chameleon. You can like morph into anything. You are wata. You put wata in the jar becomes wata. You put wata can crash.
I almost want to just pull up each track and look at some of the lyrics and discuss it, and because this is really I know. Like, on our show, we don't particularly go in depth with lyrics and break things down in a way that we definitely could, which is what I like to do. But with Lupe, I feel like it's almost a disservice to not like pull up a variety of bars, because some of the craftsmanship on this shit is just astounding. Like, I'll have a thought. Well, I didn't write any lyrics down really. I just was listening to, kind of overwhelmed and like trying to figure out the through line more than I was trying to pick out certain lines.
But it's also very dope how he can paint a vivid picture 1 second and do these very kind of complex rhyme things, like some of the stuff on Drill Music in Zion, the title track. I'm sure you're about to pull one up. But at the same time, he can just style as well.
Right.
When he's talking about his Malcolm X box, like, he's probably not like going that deep on like his connection to Malcolm X. I appreciate that he chose like same type of things that got Malcolm X watched and not same type of things that got Malcolm X shot. Yeah. Because he knows that he's not going to get himself killed over any of these lyrics. but at the same time, like he can style and he can have fun and he can be flashy and show off, and at the same time, yeah, he can be mad dope with it.
Simple lines too, like why should he have such views of the ocean and not be hanging from the gallows with his neck neatly broken? Talking about the elites, you know, like Lupe is amazing, man. I don't really, like I said, I didn't write down a lot of lyrics of anything, but this is an album that I'll be listening to a lot more. We were kind of busy like with new music coming out, so I didn't like sit with this and play it 10 times, but I've heard it at least 5 or 6 times, and I'm still trying to get what's being said, because I'm convinced that even though it is sprawling and sometimes off topic and just barring out at times, I'm convinced that there's intention here that he's trying to get across. Even the title Drill Music in Zion, I didn't necessarily expect drill music, because Zion is either like the Matrix, which is like the real world in the Matrix, or like a holy place. And so like
Heaven.
for yeah, right. So for Lupe, what is drill music supposed to express?
See,
what is it expressing?
That's what I grappled with. I'm like, so you're talking about drill music. Drill music is something that's grimy in the lesser side of it and real. And you're talking about Zion, which is like a heavenly concept.
Right.
So like, what are you trying to convey?
Matrix.
Yeah. What are you trying to convey? And I think it is like a level of realism, like how I'm trying to.
Yeah, it's like, what is that darkness in
Right.
heaven? Like, what is? Yeah.
I mean, like on Autobotto, he does say, "I get signals from the source," and
I
it's like,
defend myself
is that
in court.
like
This is it's hard though. It's hard.
It
it's
is
like
hard.
he's getting messages, whether the source is God or he's getting messages from like the source in the Matrix.
The source
You know
could
what I
be
mean?
anything,
Like
right?
the
What's the
source
source?
code. Like so, you know, with Lupe, I mean, even the title requires you to kind of imagine and project into what the intention is and what he's trying to say. And I think it's a fucking hard title. That's his
Oh, no,
number
it's
one. That's
definitely good.
his, the
Yeah,
number
it's
one
a good
album
title.
title that he's ever had. Fucking Drill Music in Zion. Like I would have been surprised if it was drill music, and I would have been disappointed if it was, because I don't want to hear Lupe doing drill. But it might have been interesting to hear him over
I
at
ain't
least
gonna lie.
one drill
If
beat.
he had one drill beat on that judge and just going over, I'd be like, huh, well done, Lupe.
I so badly want him to collaborate with more of these underground independent artists who are making challenging rap music. Like, why hasn't he
Do
done
they
an
want to
A$AP
rap
Rock?
with him though?
I mean,
It's the thing.
I imagine that these guys can appreciate his workflow and his art and
I
shit,
There's
right?
speculate-
also not a lot of
I don't think so, though.
collaboration on this record. There's Naira
There's no
doing a lot of
features
singing,
except for the
and
except
then
for the singers.
the intro, Aisha Jacko, who's his sister,
Right.
and then soundtrack on some of the production. Like it's the two of them, right?
I'm
It's him and
speculating, but I
soundtrack.
don't think underground rappers really respect Lupe. I'm totally speculating. I could be totally wrong, but I think if you go to like the underground class of rappers, they look at Lupe as a mainstream rapper.
They look at him like a quali.
Yes.
I mean, people respect quality. Like Planet Asia respects quality and shit.
People who not in the underground scene like me do.
Okay.
Like that's our underground.
Yeah.
Like me is not being really into the underground scene. Our underground rappers are your Lupes,
Sure.
your Talib Kweli's,
And a Mos Def or
your
some
Mos
shit,
Def,
right.
and to a
I
lesser
get
extent, Royce the 5'9". That's our underground. But
Sure.
for you underground people, y'all gonna be like, hell nah. Give me Sky
I mean,
Zoo.
I would love to hear Lupe and A$AP together. I mean, I think their styles are complementary. They're both incredibly talented. I mean, Lupe came out like A$AP
keep
has
it
a song
short.
about fucking long-legged Larry, a frog with just
Yeah.
like a fun song, and Lupe came out with a song about like dinosaurs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For his like a nephew or some shit. And I think that I would be interested to see Lupe work with somebody like in a Lucid or even an
Really?
Earl. Yeah. I think because like when you have a writer of the caliber of Lupe, like you don't just say, yo, send me a verse. You say, yo, here's a topic. Let's go off on it.
I
Let's
think he
figure
could
it
do
out.
it.
You know what I mean?
I
And it'd be
don't-
fun. It'd be
That's a
dope.
weird mashup though. Him and the Lucid. I think he could do it though because Lupe
It depends
is
on the
skilled.
beat. It depends on the beats that they use, right?
Can you see Lupe with no drums?
Yes, because
Yeah, he can
Lupe's
rap over anything.
Lupe can. He's a horn player MC to me. He's one that can flow and do things. He's not like a very stuck in a drum, a simple drum pattern. He's able to bar out like some of the bar runs that he has on this shit are like wow, like this syllable connection that you got going on, this multi-syllabic run is just fucking interesting. And yeah, I'm always down to hear that. I would like to see him lean more into the less conventional, the more of the guys who are bubbling underground. Like, not saying that he needs to do some shit with Akai Solo or
Navy Blue.
Makhami,
Right.
but I mean, like there are people who are bubbling right now who I think that he would sound interesting. I mean,
I think
A$AP Rock is my number one cat that I'd like to see him with.
You see him and Wiki doing a song together?
No,
Okay.
Wiki is too street. Wiki is too street. He be talking about like eating pussy and shit. Like, I mean, Lupe
like
could
Wiki.
do it. I like Wiki too, especially
Wiki.
you know, like keep the tooth out. Like I like that. Keep it gutter. You know, 100%. I like Wiki, but they're less connective to me than some of the more like. Not to say that Wiki's not intellectual at all, but I mean he does have songs like that. What no mountains in Manhattan. Like a lot of those songs is about like getting pussy and fucking bitches, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
I support getting pussy and having sexual intercourse with a lot of people. But I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm with the weird shit.
Regan endorsement. Sexual intercourse is good with Secret House.
Yeah, I'm a
So
big fan.
how we feeling about it? What are we thinking for ratings?
I give it a strong 7.5 for me. Like, there's something to be desired, but there's also just like there's no way this album is going to go any further down. It might grow on me and become a little bit better, but right now I give it a strong 7.5. Light 8.
Low ball, the lowest you can give this album, I think, is a 6.5. And the highest you can give it is an 8. And I'm slap dead in the middle of that, so I'm gonna say like a 7.5, 8 on a good day. All right, you can convince me to say 8.
This is an 8 for me. This is like ocho, right
Okay.
there. 8. No,
I'm not mad at that.
light, no strong. Like this is extremely competent. It's not necessarily breaking the mold in any kind of like particularly interesting way. But when Lupe said, "I can rap as well as any of these guys. I can rap better than any of these guys," he wasn't lying. The production is dope. Maybe it doesn't go as far as what I'd like. I don't need Lupe to be Death Grips for me. I don't need Lupe to be JPEG Mafia for me. I don't need him to be Arm & Hammer for me. But this is the Lupe album that I wanted. Like it's concise, it's to the point, and he's rapping really, really well on it.
Not mad at that 8. That's a good one.
It's an 8. It's a
Lowest
solid
you can do
8
is
for me.
6. Anybody, the lowest you can give this is a 6.5. If you do that, I kind of think you're a hater. And the highest is 8. So anything between there, I think good. But yeah, Jet, I respect the 8.
I'm a recovered hater. Like you won Lupe. You won one person over at least. Like
Damn chameleon.
comfortably.
What's a red dot to a whole .gov? Bars. Oh, this fool's crazy. Secret House.
It's crazy.
Secret House.
Secret House against
Fuck
Secret
the war
House. Yeah. We're going to be back on it more, I think. Hopefully. Corona's crazy out here right now. And we be outside.
Yo,
I'm going to
Lupe,
see Alchemist tonight.
Lupe, get a track in Alchemist. Use drums.